All right, so things should be coming forward here. Let's see, put this up, get all the tech connecting. I hope everyone is able to see what's going on, get logged in. I'm hoping there's not a lag. Let's see. Oops. Yep, there is a bit of a lag. We'll get things going. Get the agenda pulled up. If you go to the main tab for the for YouTube there, for our channel, for the Assemblies channel, I've posted the link for this evening's call. Let me see if I can get there, that I can post it in there as well. The presentation is pulling up. Everything's a little bit of a lag. Let me post in here. Spring greetings. This is Christine on Gibson County. Welcome. Let's see. Still getting things set up here. Where did that go? Oh, really? Okay, let's see. Oh, so I could go here. Let me go to the channel. The link is there. Yes, and it's showing live, so you should get a notification. Let's see. Where do those posts go? Let's see. And then I can get that link for the agenda. As we're getting things going. All right, we've got others coming in the call. Welcome. KC, Clay County. All right, yes, we did bring forward 2 on Clay County this week, and that populates Clay County. All right, welcome, dear. There's a lag, so it'll take a moment for things here. It's a crazy lag. But I'm getting other things pulled up. I'm trying to get to the, so I can get you the link to be able to pull it up online. I did post it to the homepage of the Assembly's YouTube channel. I posted a comment there. You should be able to find it there, but I'm going in to pull up the direct link so you can be able to get that, and I'll post it in the comments so that way it'll be with this video stream when the video is over, as well as those in the call can be able to pull up. All right, let's see, here we go. Okay, so the link is copy. All right, I'll just leave that close, minimize it. Okay, let me put this in the comment. Welcome, Lisa, St. Joseph County. All right, welcome. All right, so again, we've welcomed Casey. She is a new national on Clay County this past week, and she has helped to populate Clay County for us this week. All right. All right, here is the link. All right, so we'll go ahead. I'll get some screen share going here. So again, there's some lag, so bear with. I try to pause for it to catch up with the comments. All right, and this is because I'm using OBS with YouTube, so that I'm able to still save a recording for the assembly record. Because if you just go straight through YouTube, then that recording is saved on their server. Then you have to at some point go in and download it. So there'll be some lag time in that. So bear with on that. All right. So let me get the presentation up. I've posted in the link. And let's get this pulled up. Yeah, I gotta also have part of this up so I can still see how much is showing. Okay, so we'll get the display going here. All right. Okay, so I can minimize me. You don't need me so much in here. Bring me over to. Woo. All right. Okay, so we can then make this a little bit bigger in the background. Let me do this and get some of this going. Move this over. So let's see how that. Okay, so that gives a better. Ooh. I still gotta kind of have the side so I can see make sure I can see what's going on too on that aspect. Okay. All right, so let's get rolling. Welcome everyone. I am Christine Michelle Bundy, State Coordinator and Lead Recording Secretary for the Indiana Assembly since 2019. I am fully armored, and so I am able to protect and defend myself as needed. But it's also that I choose to stand as a national in order to serve in the capacity to support the Federation, as well as to serve to support helping to coordinate the people on Indiana. All right, so we'll go ahead and get things going. We want to start here with a moment of silence to honor our Creator. Alright, so we'll go ahead and get started with the Bivens decision. This meeting is private. Bearing false witness, misrepresentation, and posting inflammatory rhetoric in public forums is forbidden and shall be addressed in an appropriate manner. To eliminate all conflicts and false allegations, is there anyone in attendance at today's meeting that is a member or agent of any law enforcement agency or public agency of the federal, state, county, city, or township agencies present? Is there any response to the Bivens decision for the first time? And there's a delay, so we gotta pause a moment for the delay. But I'm going to go with pretty much there's hearing none. So is there any response to the Bivens decision for the second time? And again, there is a serious lag because I'm not even seeing the display right now on YouTube's video. Okay, so it's even just now picking that up. So we're gonna take a moment, I guess, to give it time to pause. It's this is funny. This is so funny. All right, so well, we'll go ahead with furthermore, anyone who is here under false pretenses, anyone who is working for any foreign government, including the territorial United States and municipal United States, anyone is being paid or coerced to be here must fully disclose their presence and purpose now or leave the premises or call. So it's still even taking a moment to get out to where the video, YouTube of the moment of silence. That's interesting. Okay, so I am not sure how to be able to reduce some of this lag. That is crazy. How is that possible? I'm not sure how that's supposed to happen. Not quite sure how. It says for let's see, slow mode, where that's to be able to do the scrolling for message delay. And that's not checked at the moment, but that's not what's causing the delay. But all right, so we'll see how this goes. It is a few minutes, really a delay. So maybe this is an opportunity that, oh, let's see, are there others? Okay, not yet. So, okay. Maybe this is also an opportunity that if I do need to go ahead and not go through OBS and just straight through YouTube, who is going to be willing to volunteer to do that download of that video so that we can be able to make sure that there is a record for the assembly? So that'll be interesting to be able to. I'd be glad for those that are armored up that would like to be able to bring that kind of support. I would be grateful for you to email me to let me know if you've got tech skills to be able to help support. So, all right. Of course, you've got to be armored up, and then there's the background check. Clearchecks.com. All right. So it is just now getting to the Bivens decision. So now you're going to hear me saying it's just now catching everything up. So I'm just gonna have to run with this. I'm not really sure how else to do it. All right, so the first article we want to get to the point of there's some misunderstandings as to why all of this is necessary in the first place. Everybody is real quick to want to get out of having to pay taxes. They're wanting to be real quick to get their property out of the grips of the beast, and I totally get that. All right. But remember, what's done in secret, if it's done behind closed doors, is it really necessary good for you anyway? So we've got to be able to find a way to be able to bridge this gap so that we can be able to bring forward the ability to come together so that we can actually make this change happen, because we're all tired of the tyranny. And the moment tyranny stops is when you're ready to say no for yourself and for everyone else. Not just for yourself, but yourself and everyone else. Because it needs to be, because that's the Christ consciousness. Not being a Christian, that's the Christ consciousness, is not just thinking about yourself. Yes, Christ said to make sure you think about yourself, but it's also think about everyone else as well, right? All right, so some things we need to get clear first, because regardless, you want to get out of all these little traps and tricks and everything that they have, but it's not going to do you a bit of good if you're still standing as a U.S. or if you're still lying as a U.S. citizen. Because the only way you have the authority to be able to access any of those tools is once you have the standing. But if it, and then also, don't try to misuse things for your own benefit. Okay? So I want to put a question out here first before I get into this, because this was something that I thought, well, let's test this. Okay, so I'm going to put a question out here. What is your, what do you think an American is? All right, I've got this question out there. So what do you think an American is? All right. And then answer that, but then at the end, I would like for you to respond to that again and see if you see things a little bit differently at that point. All right. All right. So first article, first thing we need to know is to eliminate the fear of the assembling process in the first place. Okay. We have the right to peaceably assemble. As Anna says, please note the word peaceably. This is part of the long list of constitutional guarantees, provided that we are adopting our birthright political status as Americans and our owed constitutional guarantees to begin with. One of the other major points that has come into sharp focus is that our states are guaranteed the right to assemble, but they must do so in a peaceable manner. It has to be understood that our states are being assembled for lawful and peaceful purposes, or the guarantee disappears. So while you're in a rush to get, you go ahead, it's real good that you're real quick to get the paperwork done, but then you don't want to do anything to actually actively support the assembly, where you're actually supporting the assembly, which helps support that guarantee as well, right? You've got to come together and assemble. That's where the power is at, is coming together to assemble. But coming together with the state assembly, not in your own little secret groups. That's the exact same thing that they all did. Why do you think you're going to change anything by thinking you're going to go somewhere else and just create another state assembly? There's only one federation approved state assembly per state. This is it. It's not wherever else you may think you're going. Okay? Now, things to think about. If you attack the federal subcontractors and their citizenry, they're free to attack you in return. But so long as you stay the course and enforce upon them in a lawful manner, they have no recourse but to obey their contracts and honor their employer's wishes. All right? Do you hear that? All right. Welcome, John from Lake County. Awesome. Welcome, welcome. John, want you to know we got Clay County on, is a new Indianian. Oh, it reconnected. I lost connection for a moment. Okay. She's a new Indianian on Clay County, which also populated Clay County. Woohoo! All right. Okay. So we're going through, I've got a question out there that I want you to put your answer in now as to what you think an American is. And then at the end of this call, I want you to rethink that question. Okay? and then see how that has it. Is it the same? Is it completely different than what you thought it was? Or has it even improved? Okay, so the question is right now, what do you think an American is? So that, and then we're going to go through this so that, and then let's see where you're at once we're done. Assembly chairman. Right, absolutely. Great point, Lisa. Thank you. Assembly chairmen are not CEOs brandishing executive power. Chairmen are spokespersons. Similarly, recorders are not officers of an assembly. They're employees of their assembly, paid or not. We understand that people are familiar with corporations and have lived their lives with corporations running their businesses and schools and other institutions. But the plain fact is that our American government is not a corporation, doesn't function as a corporation, and doesn't harbor the same kind of organizational structure, compartmentalization, or hierarchy. Our assemblies are supposed to be organized by committee. That's why assemblymen are called committeemen. In many early documents, the General Assembly is a standing committee of the whole. The International Business Assembly and General Assembly are both special standing committees. The State Assembly Militia is a special purpose committee. Great point, John. Thank you. Free man or woman to live in peace. Huge, huge. Okay, so do we see here? So that the assemblies are organized by committee. Okay? And that's why they're get called committeemen or committeewomen in the earlier documents. So the General Assembly is a standing committee as a whole. So there's a lot of business that can be done at the that's really general, that's what I bring to the table for the General Assembly, right? That is supporting how we're going to work with outreach, how we're going to build the general education program, how to build the new member orientation program. These are all committees that support the General Assembly. These are all things that the General Assembly, as the committee of the whole, has to be able to support. Okay? The International Business Assembly and General Assembly are both special standing committees. That means they only stand when they're needed. Okay? Whereas in the de facto, their International Business Assembly, what they call the Indiana State General Assembly, is open 24, well, it's open. You know, they have their vacation times, right? But they have a regular schedule. And it becomes a career, right? Okay. And the court system in the de facto, that's Monday through Friday, and they honor federal holidays. Right? But in the land and soil jurisdiction, the International Business Assembly only needs to meet when there is an issue that affects us internationally. For example, we could have looked into a perspective of how to support the Ohioans from the fallout. I don't know how else to put it at this point right now. From the train accident, right? Because that's international. That's crossing international lines at that point, because we have to remember, just because we know we can easily drive over to Ohio, or travel over to Ohio, or travel over to Illinois, that is a completely separate sovereign nation. Okay? We gotta get the states separated out, but yet we are the United States, right? So, and then the General Assembly is only going to be standing and in session when cases are brought forward, when trials need to be called. And if men and Americans are self-governing and are handling things for the most part, that shouldn't be very often. At first, it's going to be quite a bit because that's going to help work through getting some of this cleaned up. Okay? But then it'll get to where that's not going to be needed very often, because if everyone is taking care of themselves and handling themselves appropriately, the General Assembly is not going to need to, grand trials are not going to be needed that often. However, we do have to think about on the local level, on your counties, you may need to have that General Assembly directly there for a little while longer. There may be more issues that have to be worked through. But again, it's called they're special standing committees because they're only called when needed. Okay? Whereas, like with the General Assembly, it's a standing committee of the whole. All right? And then the Assembly Militia, Special Purpose Committee. It serves a special purpose. Albeit the General Assembly serves a special purpose, this is from a different perspective, right? And we're going to go deeper into that in this training call. Okay, so our state assemblies can establish lots of other committees in addition to these 4 to get business done. But aside from the subject matter that each committee is responsible for, they have no special authority one over the other. The State General Assembly is responsible for addressing questions that arise within the border of the state. Okay, so are we clear? So State General Assembly is responsible for issues that are and questions that arise within the borders of the state itself. International Business Assembly, that's where it's responsible if it's involving interstate business and diplomacy. The General Assembly addresses issues related to the public courts. Okay? So right now, it's the General Assembly that can really be making some headway with the public courts. Okay? The State Assembly Militia deals with issues of defense and, to an extent, apprehension of criminals and natural disaster response within the borders of the state. Okay? And natural disaster response within the borders of the state. Okay? What has happened in Richmond, Indiana, overnight? Okay? Obviously, prayers need to go out. But there's going to be, people are going to be affected there. So we've got to figure out how can we be able to help support them. But it's also, we've got to come together. You've got to have that connecting hub. The assembly is the connecting hub. You don't get to, having separate little groups all over is great as long as you're also still connected into the main hub of the assembly so that we can be able to keep a core network together. Okay? So in situations like this, because we may be able to bring help and support from other counties, we've got to be able to come together. You've got to stop this thinking you've got to separate out and can only do things yourself. We've got to start trusting each other and come together to support each other. More and more natural disasters are going to be happening. We're going through a lot of solar issues. The planet is going through some issues. So we need to be prepared. We are that next one to help each other. We've got to help each other. Part of the militia's support is going to be going through, it's called CERT, Community Emergency Response Training. If you've been on the General Assembly calls, you will have seen that for a while now, of that needs to be established. And this is a great point of something that would be able to support the militia. Okay. So we have the absolute right to assemble and conduct our own business, so long as we do it as Americans and act in an above board. That means it doesn't need to be everybody separated out on their own, but we can't talk to anybody else and let anybody know. This, if you want, this is not the state where you go in hiding and make your own decisions. We're coming together. That's the whole point of assembling, is to gather together. Okay? We have the absolute right to assemble and conduct our own business, so long as we do it as Americans, above board, peaceable, and lawful manner. The lawful manner also is supporting where it's when you're gathering, you're coming with the gathering of the assembly and the covering of the assembly. That means you got to communicate with the assembly. You got to connect with the assembly. You got to actually be, include the assembly. If you are wanting to just create your own thing and go on your own thing, then don't be a part of that is misuse of trying. That is the wrong kind of actions. That's exactly what a U.S. citizen would do to try and use to get contacts. Okay, the whole point is coming together, learning to trust all of us, not just the sorted ones that you think are agreeing to only what you think. We're coming together in a gathering to assemble together as a state. We must stand vigilant against being misled by people acting with guile to paint us as insurrectionists, and equally stand guard against people acting in ignorance. And it looks like it can be taken as an insurrectionist act if you are doing separate things from the assembly, but yet you're misleading the people if you're telling them that you're with the assembly, but you're not really supporting the assembly. There's too much at stake to do otherwise. If you want real change, again, it's time to come together. Stop using the old programming ways of thinking that we're all doing this together. Together. Christine does not want to be the only one doing all the jobs that at least are holding all the pieces together. Christine didn't want to do that. This role is a sunsetting role. That's the purpose. Train. This is a sunsetting role. The purpose is to wake you all up to do the job you're supposed to be doing, to come together to make this change happen. Oh, okay. All right, so a note to assembly coordinators: if you find individuals who are abnormally resistant to operating in a committee-based organization and who persist in demanding and seeking a corporate-style structure, even after this difference has been explained to them, please give them the following choices. 1, you can stay and change your assumptions and learn to work within the committee structure of your state assembly and be recognized as an American with all the rights and responsibilities you're heir to. 2, you can join the local district assembly, adopt territorial U.S. citizenship, and act as an indentured servant and subject of the Queen, responsible for obeying several million statutory laws and all that entails. 3, you can join the nearest municipal district assembly, be recognized as a municipal citizen of the United States, and adopt the status of a slave owned by the Roman Pontiff, responsible for all the debts of the United States, Inc., and obligated to obey all the municipal codes and regulations. Okay, So that is that article about we have the right to assemble and the importance of assembling. Okay, so here, now we're going to go into about structure and purpose orientation of assemblies. I'll take a moment to take a drink. We're in this airy season, and even though it has been raining, not today though, it is a dry part of it. It's supposed to be a dry part of the season, so I get dry. Okay. All right, so again, this is about structure and purpose orientation of assemblies. During the assembly phase and until the assembly is fully functional and on its own, the coordinator is in charge of making sure that the assembly members are properly declared and recorded as Americans, and that the 4 functions that are common to all American assemblies are up and going. Once the assembly is organized and fully functional with these basics in place, the coordinator's position sunsets. Each assembly has 4 basic functions, and all assemblies have at least these 4 functions that they ultimately need to provide. General Assembly handles in-state business. Business Assembly handles out-of-state business. Jural Assembly handles court services and issues. Militia Assembly handles militia services. The State Assembly, which is the embodiment of these sub-assemblies, is a committee of the whole. So what does that mean? It means we have no positions of authority that are executive in nature. We don't have a chief executive officer like a president. Our assembly chairmen are spokespersons. Stop a moment and consider that. Awesome. Great. Well, diving in. All right. So, again, so stop a moment and consider the difference that this implies. So the chairmen are spokespersons. They're not any kind of chief executives or chief executive officer or president of a company or anything like that. So, and that's where the assembly needs that, the General Assembly needs that chairman or woman, right? Free people endowed and enabled to act in the fullness of their individual sovereignty don't take orders from anyone, and an assembly of such free people does not assume that any member is less or more important, except that some among us may have more skill or more learning to share, and thereby become leaders in various areas by merit and proven trustworthiness, not because they occupy an office. Such offices as we have are offices of service. The assembly chairman is the spokesman for the assembly, and similar to an American common law judge, the chairman speaks for the people according to what the people have as a committee of the whole expressed to him. He has his opinions like everyone else, and he may sometimes disagree with the will of the assembly, yet it is his duty to pronounce it, and the assembly has its free will, except that it is accountable to the public law and custom of our country. All of the other functionaries of the assembly, like the state recording secretaries, have accepted the burden of learning skills and employing those skills to perform services for the assembly. And it's all volunteer at this point. In our system, it's respect for the goodwill and effort of these people make to help other Americans correct and record their political status that we owe, not respect for an office per se. Ditto, our justices and our court clerks, notaries, and everyone else. We're all equal as Americans, and these Americans are respected for their knowledge, their heart, and their work, not because they hold an office. and obviously these articles are much longer. I've pulled out poignant, important points from each one that that I thought. Obviously, you can go to the link. I've made sure to provide them so that you can go to each one and get into further detail yourself. That would be great. A great challenge would be to for any of the articles that you go back and read yourself directly in the article. Your challenge is read the article, at least one. Try, if you can, however many more you can do, but do one, try one. Read the article all the way through and then come back to the thing on YouTube afterward and leave your comment of what was like the one main thing that that was important, that you found important, that you took away from that article. Okay? All right. Okay. The true purpose of all assemblies is to provide the people of this country with a voice, both a voice about in-state issues and a voice of international affairs. Thus, we have the General Assembly composed of state nationals and state citizens to handle in-state business, and the business, sometimes called International Assembly, composed of state citizens to handle international issues. Note, because our states are nation states, the word international and interstate are synonymous. Again, sometimes there is confusion and assumptions that some kind of hierarchy is involved, that state citizens being above state nationals because they get to vote on international questions. But this is not the case. Our forefathers in their wisdom, because they also had children, they know that those that, you know, give them a little bit, they can go a little bit crazy, so they knew how they needed to make sure and put some things in play. So in their wisdom, they used a system of checks and balances throughout the government structures they created. They were also ever vigilant against conflicts of interest. As a result, they ordained that there would be a separation of jurisdiction between the county government and the state government. That's the land and soil jurisdiction. The county has absolute authority over local laws within the county borders, subject only to the public law and customs of our country as a whole. So that's why we start with the state assembly, getting the state assembly in play as we're going, and then as counties get enough, as they're populating enough on their county, that they start filling their roles to get each of the counties stood up as well, for having each county will have their general assembly, business assembly, general assembly, and militia assembly. But then there's also still the overall state assembly. Okay. Our county sheriffs, elected by each county assembly, is the highest elected peacekeeping official in America. Within its borders, each county is an island unto itself, and its only access to the outside world is via its participation in the state assembly. Okay? Pay attention. Its only access to the outside world, that means other nation states too, right, is via its participation in the state assembly. This was done to prevent foreign powers from coming in and forming alliances with the county governments and picking them off one by one with promises of emoluments or pleas to cultural and political affiliations. Similarly, the state assembly has plenary authority over state-level issues, both in-state issues and international issues. As part of their vigilance to prevent conflict of interest, the founders decreed that only state citizens, armored up state citizens, not obviously everyone has the right to declare whether they're a national or a citizen, but it's that they have their armored up and their participation that makes them citizens. Okay, state citizens, the people in We the People, who willingly serve the state government and who have no other allegiance, can vote on international questions that come before the state assembly. And only state citizens can serve as commanders in the state assembly militia. Again, this was put in place so that there is no opportunity for thoughts of insurrection and no opportunities for foreign powers to come in. Because an armored up state citizen will have canceled all the contracts. This again helps prevent foreign powers from seducing state governments away from serving the best interest of their states and the people living there. It also helps forestall the possibility that the state militia could be turned against the people it is meant to serve or otherwise be misdirected. Prime example of that. COVID not shut down. At that time, my husband and I were living Marion County, right there in Speedway. Penske bought the track, the Indy 500 track, and the parking lot across the street was set up with Indiana National Guard for checkpoints for, you know. And they were there for, I think somewhere I did a little short video I posted out somewhere that where I showed that how long they were there. Anyway, you can all see the logic and common sense involved here, and also see that the only superiority implied by state citizen status is that of service and unique allegiance. Americans who work for the federal government or serve in the U.S. military are in fact serving in foreign capacities and can't serve two governments at once. So until they fully retire and leave federal employment, they can't serve as state citizens. Retirees and pensioners can serve, but not active duty or reserves. Okay? Now, they can still be able to, come to when we have regular, I'm just closing the blinds here. I've been enjoying this amazing sunshine all day. It was outside. Woo. Working on garden stuff. Okay. Anyway, so they still, from the General Assembly perspective, if there's like a pitch-in or, just an opportunity for a gathering kind of thing, they can still be able to, come and connect, but they're not going to be able to participate with the actual mission of the assembly. And again, that is because they are serving a foreign government, and even though in their off time, they're still their pay is tied to a foreign government. They can't serve in that capacity at that point. In all these ways, and that's something that many have to recognize, is a U.S. citizen, you're a citizen 24/7. That's because you're their property, so they can track you. It doesn't have any, and they want to make sure you're completely beholden to it. You're completely in allegiance to it, right? All right. In all these ways and more, our assembly-based American government is built around the individual people who ordain its existence. And its sole preeminent goal is to protect the people of this country and their assets. A goal that is within our reach the moment we wake up, stand up, and accept the responsibilities of self-governance. All right, this is the next article. Think, people. The government of this country is vested in its people. So how can you be self-governing if there is no means to govern. No structures or organizations, no assemblies, no courts, no peacekeepers, no sheriffs, no offices in evidence, no public meetings, no means to identify Americans who aren't foreign U.S. citizens or municipal citizens of the United States. You might be the silent majority, but you can see why you have no voice. You have let your own employees steal the reins of government, and you haven't bothered to take them back. You can end the crimes being perpetuated against you by joining your state assembly, and 24 men can form up the court and the offices needed to serve the recorded Americans in your state, and you say goodbye to the foreign courts. Ex parte Milligan 2 USC 71, you are letting these monsters prey upon you for lack of action on your parts to take control of your own government and do the work of self-governments. Now stand up and do it. Okay, now this particular article, it literally was only one page, so it is these 2 slides here, okay? But I did go ahead and I looked up the Ex parte Milligan, so you can go to this link and read that. You'll, if you didn't know already, Ex parte Milligan 2 USC 71, it's here in Indiana, right? Why aren't we doing this? All right. Oh, okay, so civilian militias. Civilian militias are as old as mankind. They are us. When we band together to face common dangers, deal with outlaws, survive natural disasters, and defend against invaders. That's why the word militia means people in Hebrew. So there's nothing improper or unknown or dangerous about civilian militias. They're here to protect hearth, home, and community at the most basic, natural, and obvious level. Welcome, Linda on Lake County. All right, we got another one on Lake County this evening. Welcome. And Linda, welcome. We've got a new national on Clay County that populated Clay County this week. So welcome her home. All right. So there's nothing improper, unknown, or dangerous about civilian militias. They're here to protect hearth, home, community at the most basic, natural, and obvious levels. This is why our Republican states of the Union are guaranteed the right to keep and maintain a well-regulated militia. Read that. We're responsible for keeping our state militia forces well-trained and educated so that they know their role and don't trespass. Otherwise, we are absolutely guaranteed the right and ability to create and maintain our own state militia. Oh, also, Linda, I got a question out there to put in the chat of what you think an American is. And then when we finish going through this evening's presentation, then rethink the question and see if it's changed, or how that may have changed after going through this evening's presentation. And you can go back later. And there's also the challenge to go back later and read at least one of the articles all the way through, and then come back and put in the comments at least one thing that you took away, that you valued it, so that to see what you thought was important that you could take from that article. At least one. All right. So what happened to our state militias? They were redefined. Are you noticing a pattern here? As National Guards. Their command was placed under a foreign state governor instead of our state assembly chairman. And many of their functions were merged into the conventional military and butted up against the Pinkerton system of private security personnel represented by FBI, BATF, and similar armed agency subcontractors. Another, that's at the federal level. At the municipal level, the states, townships, counties, they all have bargaining agreements with the Fraternal Order of Police. That's how they have officers. Things have gotten so bad in recent years that our unlawfully converted state militias, redefined as National Guards, have been used to replace the official military because they're cheaper to deploy. Thus, we are greeted with the bizarre reality of state National Guards, who were never authorized nor intended to act beyond the borders of their home states of the Union, fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq under the command of a foreign corporation's president. There is absolutely no authority in existence anywhere permitting the president of the foreign U.S. Inc. or USA Inc. corporations to maintain any such National Guard force in our country. None. If and when a large force of combined state-level militia is needed, it's simple enough to put such a force together, but the nature of a state militia is to function entirely and exclusively within the borders of their state of the Union. The nation they are intended to guard are the people of each state, not any visiting federal nation representing employees of foreign corporations that are only allowed to be here by the Residency Act of 1790 for the purpose of providing essential government services. See the Act and see the Constitutions at Article 4. Okay, pay attention. Residency Act of 1790. That's where they loop you in and entrap you with the so-called driver's license. Because you're going for the driver's license, but they're declaring you a resident of the state. Okay? That's how they're doing it. Civilian militias have functioned forever in every country on earth, and all of them are attached to the land and soil jurisdiction, except for Britain. We forget, amid the ever-touted glories of England, that Britain made and still makes a large portion of its income from privateers and the management of privateers by the British Navy. Britain's civilian militia also includes licensed medical doctors, as opposed to private physicians, who usually outrank the judges and bar attorneys. So it's impossible for a lower-ranking officer, judge, to condemn a higher-ranking officer, medical doctor, in the same civilian militia service. This is why the coroner, a medical doctor, is the only one who can administratively remove a territorial state-of-state governor from office. This is why attempts to bring the doctors who have killed millions of innocent people to justice in British maritime courts are doomed to failure. It's not that they haven't committed crimes. It isn't that they don't deserve to be hung for medical profiteering resulting in genocide. It's the fact that the court is incompetent to try these genocide-for-profit monsters. We are not at war. Commercial, mercenary war, or otherwise. However, our civilian population is being inappropriately addressed as combatants in the midst of this illegal endangerment posed by our misdirected federal contract employees. Over 270,000 excess American deaths have occurred as a result of the activities by DARPA and the DoD municipal government agencies acting under direct direction from their parent corporation, the UN Corporation. Sorry, figuring out that we have to actually do something to make this happen. We can't sit around and expect the past is the past of sitting around and talking with each other about commensurating on what is being done. We know what they're doing. There's no reason to stay hanging out in those low vibes. Okay? The point now is that it's about course correcting. And you have to be a participant in making that course correction happen. You can't think that a outside source is going to just do it for you. Okay, so this is unacceptable in the extreme and will be prosecuted as both commercial and actual crime. None of our people are excess in the view of the lawful American government. Americans are asked to wake up and get organized. Declare and record your actual political status so that you can't be mistaken for an enemy combatant, and join your lawful state assembly. All right. So this is a general education of the whole overview to give you better knowledge as to what this is, that it's more than just getting out of payroll taxes. Okay? It's more than just trying to get the police officer to not give you a ticket on the side of the road. This is a bigger picture. Okay? It's time to get in that mindset. Once you get in that mindset, things will also start coming into play for you as well. Okay? It's time to let go of old ways of doing things. Okay. Light unto the peacekeepers. Peacekeepers act as men enforcing the public law of this country. Law enforcement agents and officers are private security personnel enforcing the private law of governmental services corporations on the employees and dependents of these corporations. Period. I will follow that up with some additional important point. I got to make this one bigger. Okay. I will follow that up with some additional important pointers for peacekeepers and law enforcement officers too. Peacekeepers always outrank all law enforcement officers, LEOs, when dealing with issues that impact living people on American soil. Always, without exception. The county sheriff can tell any U.S. Marshal to take a hike. 2. The only issues to be determined are 1. Are we dealing with people who have been chosen to act as living people, that is, as Americans? Or 2, are we dealing with people who have knowingly and voluntarily chosen to act as officers, employees, and or dependents of foreign governmental services corporations, that is, as a U.S. citizen, as U.S. citizens? 3. As this has been considered to be a political status and a matter of private choice in the past, the only way to tell the difference between Americans and U.S. citizens or citizens of the United States has been whether or not the man or woman's name has been registered as a U.S. corporation or not. 4. We're finding that a great many of these registrations have been falsified and put in place without the knowledge or consent of the actual possessors of the underlying trade names, which results in Americans being chronically and unconscionably misidentified as U.S. citizens and deprived of their natural and unalienable rights and constitutional guarantees, misaddressed by law enforcement personnel, railroaded into U.S. court venues that have no actual jurisdiction over them, and subjugated under foreign private statutory law. Probably better get this smaller so you'll be able to see it in the... Peacekeepers have the right and duty to claim jurisdiction for anyone who maintains their identity as a living American. 5. Peacekeepers and the people they serve need to establish their identity as the actual owners of their given trade names and record these facts on the public record. Also, as a result of the widespread false registration problem, Americans need to give notice of their non-corporate status and standing on the public record and stand ready to provide such proof of status and standing to law enforcement officials. Otherwise, LEOs presume that everyone they meet is subject to the statutory laws they enforce. So maybe we did have a what county is he on? What county is he on? Hold on just a moment. No. I did. Oh, here we go. What county is he? Let's see. Oh, another one on Lake County. He just was on a call with him last night to record his 928s. He had already done his 1779. We're doing his 928s. And he had a great experience. Like a being pulled over is a great experience, you know, but he had an opportunity that he was able to show that he was able to articulate and handle himself appropriately, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to be able to, that he'll come at some point onto a call that he can be able to share that experience with us, so that others can be able to, you know, get an idea of, you know, what did he do in that situation. Okay, 5, peacekeepers and the people they serve. Okay, so that's what we just, yeah. That's why we need to claim the trade name. Okay, 6, peacekeepers enforce the public law, including the provisions of the Constitution owed to Americans, the unrevised United States Statute at Large, and the General Session Laws. They do not enforce statutes, codes, or regulations of any kind. That is the duty of law enforcement officers, and law enforcement officers are only supposed to be addressing other U.S. citizens, not Americans. A seminal U.S. Supreme Court case, Mack and Prince v. USA Inc., has established that law enforcement officers may, if they so choose, enforce the public law and uphold the constitutions, but it is not in their job description, and many of them fail to honor the public's trust. 7, peacekeepers, except for the United States Continental Marshals, work exclusively for and with public courts operating under American common law and under the supervision of justices and justices of the peace. The United States Continental Marshals work for postal district courts under the auspices of the United States of America unincorporated and the supervision of the postal district judges. Now, later, I'm going to give you a little bit, some good news of some information coming along the way, of things moving along. But take note to start looking up, do search audubonrights.com and start getting familiar with postal district. You don't need to look up judges, but just look up postal district. Okay, that'll give you a little bit more detail if you're interested in the supporting the peacekeepers, more so than just from the militia aspect. Okay, if that made sense. All right. So it goes without saying that many, though not all, Americans have been purposely misinformed and dumbed down about these and other issues of law and jurisdiction and the proper functioning of our government, including LEOs and members of the American Bar Association and the United States Bar Association. And one final note, peacekeepers do not take oaths, which are part of religious ceremonies, and they do not swear or pledge allegiances, which are part of ancient feudal practices of giving allegiance to a king. Peacekeepers are not bonded by surety bonds. Those are all provisions that may or may not be work requirements for law enforcement officers, depending on which governmental services corporations they are working for, but in no way apply to peacekeepers. The so-called swearing in of deputies, so often depicted in old Hollywood westerns, is not actually an oath-taking, and is instead a public acknowledgement in which the man accepts the responsibilities of the office he is entering as a peacekeeper in front of 2 or more witnesses. Catch the 2 or more witnesses. There is no mention of any God involved, as our lawful government maintains separation between church and state. This public acknowledgement is sometimes done by a whole large group of men at once, each and all witnessing the others, and then they hit the leather and ride off to catch bad guys as a posse. Far more typically, men are elected as deputies and do their public acknowledgement in front of the sheriff and a justice of the peace under far less dramatic circumstances. The purpose of this is to set forth in short order what the duties of a deputy or sheriff are, and for the office holder to make public admission that 1, he or she is aware of what the duties are. 2, that he or she accepts the responsibility to perform those duties in good faith. This creates a public record of the office holder's commitment and accountability to the general public in the case of peacekeepers, and to their corporate employers in the case of law enforcement officers. As always, rights go with responsibilities, and roles are defined by the duties of the office and the jurisdiction within which an office operates. All right, drink time. All right, so are you getting a little bit, changing your thoughts on some things? Has this been, you don't have to comment, just let that process and work, okay? All right, Continental Marshals. Henry Kissinger once said, and I quote, "Military men are damned stupid animals. I want you all to help prove him wrong." I'm getting calls from all over this country from good men who want to serve as Continental Marshals. They are universally confused. Most of them want to serve as marshals because it is the only such service they've heard about, or because it sounds more impressive than being a county deputy or a member of their state militia. In the vast majority of cases, these men are not being educated about the options, and therefore aren't being profitably employed by the state assemblies, which is where they need to be serving. Let's begin with the fact that once an actual county sheriff is elected, he is the highest peacekeeping official in the nation, within the borders of that county. He is the personification of the public law, period. Okay. So in terms of power, our elected sheriffs working in an unincorporated capacity, often without pay, outrank every other peacekeeping officer, including Continental Marshals and federal agents of all kinds. He vastly outranks any private corporation's law enforcement officers. Thus, the raw power of our law enforcement capability is vested in our sheriffs, and most of these men should be concentrating on organizing the declared Americans in their counties and becoming either sheriffs or sheriff deputies, working close to home to protect their own families and neighbors. We have loyal LEOs who have been elected by an unwittingly foreign population of U.S. citizens, men who still obey the constitutions And we need to interface and work with them on an ever-increasing basis to bring both ends back to the middle. There is no more important or higher role than the role of a local sheriff and his local deputies when it comes to enforcing and upholding the actual public law of this country or the constitutions either. The fundamental problem is that law enforcement officers, LEOs, are by definition working as Pinkertons for foreign corporations, and they are enforcing equally foreign statutory law on people who have been presumed to be part of a foreign population. 90% of the presumed foreign population are Americans who have been deliberately misidentified as foreigners in their own country. Those Americans need to be fully informed about their choices. But in the meantime, the LEOs need to be fully informed about this whole situation too. Thanks to Max v. Prince, these men are allowed to enforce the constitutions, but not required to. The internet this week, and this is based on, this article is from July, it was posted anyway, July of 2020. The internet this week was covered by the story of a good cop who stood up against the culture of evil in the local police force and got fired. He should be working for us, not them, on a local level. It is our job as Americans to make sure this all gets sorted out, to make sure the LEOs understand the capacity they are operating in as private security agents, also working with the constitutional corporate sheriffs and getting their own organizations together on the local level. People are crying out for the enforcement of the public law, for basic decency to prevail, and for their government to protect them. This happens first and foremost at the local level of the elected unincorporated peacekeeping official known as the county sheriff. In terms of local power, the next men in line are the sheriff's deputies, who can be sworn in from the general population of Americans in each county, just like in the old John Wayne movies. It does not happen at the level of the Continental Marshals, and most of these recruits should be focused much closer to home. The state militia is tasked to protect the borders and interests of the state, and yes, we call it a state militia, not a state defense force, or any other new label. Remember that when names change, so may the meanings. You will find no reference to state defense forces in the constitutions, but you will find reference to our well-regulated militia. While county sheriffs and deputies are meant to provide enforcement of the public law and protect people in their homes and communities locally, state militias are called upon in times of disaster, and their fundamental role is to work out a defense plan for their state, to protect its borders, assets, and people from external harm. There's some external harm that's been going on Indiana. Here's where you get, which by the way, my husband ended up putting on, it just happened, he put on a YouTube video for WTHR, and they were talking about the fire in Richmond. And come to find out, because evidently the people of the building of the property had already stated that it had gotten more than they could it got overwhelmed with all the bad storage and everything that was going on there. And so they let out that the county or the state took over part of the property in hopes of trying to push the property owner to do the cleanup job. And interestingly enough, there was a fire. So which part of the fire happened? Did it just happen to happen on the part that the local government took? Just some points. Okay. Here's where you get border patrols. Here's where you get soup kitchens and latrines when wildfires strike. Here's where you get average men booted up and working together to enforce the public law and the constitutions on the public roads and thoroughfares. The public law in this country is the 10 Commandments, and the constitutions dictate our Okay, so pay attention. So the public law is the 10 Commandments. Plain and simple. Public law is the 10 Commandments. Easy peasy. Should not be complicated. The public law is the 10 Commandments. The constitutions dictate our relationship with the federales. What we owe them and what they owe us. The Constitution is not a part of our public law. The constitutions only apply to the federal municipal employees. But that's our contract with them. It really is simple enough so that anyone can be trained to enforce the public law and understand the limits of the federal government in a day once you get down to it. So this is about getting down to it. Funneling these recruits into doing what most of them really want to do. Protect their local communities, families, and neighbors, and stop all the confusion about the Continental Marshal Service. Just as the sheriffs and their deputies protect their counties and the state militias protect their states, the Continental Marshals protect the international land jurisdiction of the country as a whole. What does that mean? Well, what is the land? The land is everything below 6 inches of the soil surface. Think about that. It's everything that underlies everything else. It forms a vast, seamless substrate underneath everything else, including the oceans. This is an international realm, and it is under international law. International law comes in 2 flavors. Land and sea. All right. And that's because sea waters are in between the land, right? Air is above both land and sea. Right now, it's just referring to land and sea. Continental Marshals stand on the land, and their brethren, the U.S. Marshals, float on the sea. The first and fundamental job of the original federal marshals, a term that encompassed functionaries operating in both jurisdictions, land and sea, was to protect the post offices. Our post offices. Remember I said pay attention to that earlier? Most of our post offices were closed at the end of the Civil War, and only a few have straggled on, and individual people serving as postmasters on the land. See the difference? Postmasters, land, versus postmasters, sea. We have our own post offices, which are slowly reopening under the civil peace flag of the United States of America. One of the chief duties of the Continental Marshals is to protect our postmasters and our post offices. And then there's a link there, abodia.com, for more info about the post office aspect. Okay. My advice and stern admonition is recognize what it is you need and where that need obligates you to serve. Most men wishing to support the public law and constitution need to be working at the local level as sheriffs, sheriff deputies, and members of their states, their assemblies, state militia. Okay? Because remember, 21 to 65 plus are men and women for the state militia, right? All of our peacekeepers need to have 1779 declarations at the very least, and to have state, national, or state citizen political status published and in evidence on some public record, preferably with the State Assembly Recording Secretary, or if that is not yet possible, be in the State Recorder's Office. There was some changes there, but not for here, because there has been a State Assembly Recording Secretary the entire time. Okay. And remember, while one can declare that they are a national or a citizen, you're not a state citizen until you've also followed through with the cancellation. You have to do all the 928s, the cancellation notices, and then if you're wanting to serve in a specific capacity, then it comes to the background check. Right? Okay. I fully realize the urgent need to protect innocent people, but that includes those who volunteer as peacekeepers too. We owe it to them and to ourselves and to the honor of our country to get this right. And all the more reason why our sheriffs, our deputies, our state militia, our continental marshals, our marshal at arms, all need to be fully armored up. If they're not fully armored up on the land, then they would not have standing to protect anyone else. Okay. Next article. Sheriffs and marshals, the enforcement. So what does being a state national mean for the men and women who are undertaking public duties in international jurisdiction? Here's how I recently explained this for an assembly coordinator. And again, this was June of 2020. I guess the way to put it is that state nationals, and that includes continental marshals, are public members of the assemblies, and state citizens are the private business managers of the state's interest who take the official responsibility for state affairs. State nationals are guaranteed all the constitutional guarantees, just like the state citizens. They have the right to attend public meetings and voice their needs and opinions. They have the right to attend and participate in all public functions of the assembly. Educational events, barbecue, public speaker events, and public education elections, for example. But they do not have the rights and obligations of state citizens to conduct the business affairs of the state, fill the state offices, run the state courts, or staff state assembly militias, etc., etc., etc. So pay attention. If you're wanting to get to the point where you're wanting to conduct business affairs of the state, you're actually wanting to support the state, using support state assembly services, resources, and actually start getting involved, you've got to be fully armored up and background check. And then depending on where it's at, if there's additional vetting from the Federation. Okay? Same across the board, because we're all equal, right? With rights come responsibilities, and with responsibilities come rights. In the case of the Continental Marshals, they give up one set of responsibilities, that of state citizenship, in order to take up other equally important responsibilities, that of peacekeeping enforcement for the international land jurisdiction. In our earlier discussion about committees of safety, there is a article about committees of safety, and it's in quotes because we don't use committees of safety. So there's more info in there, but that's enough for you to be able to find the article. We discussed the issue of sheriffs and the fact that there are two different kinds of sheriffs. Those who are public peacekeeping officials and those who are private law enforcement officers. hired guns to go with hired jurists, though most LEOs don't realize this and are working in the dark. Notice the difference in terminology: officials versus officers. The actual public officials, who are sheriffs, occupy the land and soil jurisdiction of the states. The corporate sheriffs naturally occupy offices of the county corporations, all operating in the international jurisdiction of the sea, and all being entities of the same kind and status as Dairy Queen, howbeit in the business of providing governmental services. A land jurisdiction sheriff functioning in actual public office in, say, Clayton County, Ohio, is the highest ranking law official in the county, bar none. Nobody outranks them. Not the district attorney, not even the governor of the state outranks an actual county sheriff on his home turf. And certainly neither does the governor of any state outrank a county sheriff. Anyone working as a sheriff for any incorporated entity is a lot farther down the totem pole, too. Peacekeeping officials of the actual land and soil jurisdiction, unincorporated counties, outrank law enforcement officers hired by incorporated counties of many orders of magnitude. The actual county sheriff is responsible for the enforcement of the public and organic law, including the actual constitution owed to our states and the protection of the property, persons, and guaranteed rights of the people living within the borders of his county. He only acquires his godlike powers when there is an active, qualified state general assembly present in the state. Pay attention to that. The sheriff only receives those powers when the state general assembly is present in the state, and at least a few qualifying jurors in his county to elect him, or he wouldn't be sheriff. There's no exact quorum required for these county sheriff elections, but the more people who realize the importance of joining the state general assembly and thereby also repopulating the county, their county, the better. Okay, the authority pyramid in the actual American states goes like this. So you have county sheriff, peacekeeper, from public aspect. State marshal at arms is a peacekeeper. State militia commander, peacekeeper. State troopers or rangers, peacekeeper. Again, this is all public, us. All right, now we get into Leos, private Pinkertons, sheriffs. This is law enforcement, private detectives, bailiffs, etc. Can be state or state of state. And on the federal international side, federal, also known as continental marshals, marshals from peacekeeper, public side, U.S. marshals, law enforcement, private side. Agency personnel, law enforcement, private side. Provost marshal should be a peacekeeping officer, but currently isn't. So we need to, so the states also have to bring forward a provost marshal, right? It must be understood that the authority these officials and officers have depends on where they stand on the land and soil of the states. Actual county sheriffs and state troopers and federal continental marshals outrank all Leos and agency personnel. Okay. So, and now it seems like we're going back and forth between some General Assembly, militia assembly, peacekeeping pieces specifically, but now we're also dealing with the parts and pieces of the state assembly because it all does work together as a cohesive unit. Okay, so this is the parts and the pieces of a state assembly. You will all know that the American States Assembly is dedicated to organizing what? State assemblies. It is to be taken for granted that in the process of organizing state assemblies, the adjunct functions of the general assemblies and state militias, which are under the authority of our state assemblies, will also be organized. What happened, as usual, is that certain people got the cart in front of the horse and were trying to organize general assemblies and common law grand juries without bothering to create the state general assembly first. They were also doing numerous things that were dangerous and mistaken, things that could get them and their members arrested for sedition. So I began writing to them and trying to educate them to avoid that outcome. The leaders of some of these organizations refused to learn, so we split off and created the American States Assembly for those people who want to do this and do it right, safely, peacefully, in order, with all ducks in place. I don't know how that's clear. Because none of our actual states allow dual citizenship, it is necessary that everyone who is admitted to membership as an actual state assembly expatriate from the presumption of territorial and or municipal U.S. citizenship. You have to make a choice and record that choice and act accordingly in order to establish the correct capacity to function as a state national or state citizen. Okay, this scares some people because they have been duped into thinking that there's something good about being a U.S. citizen. It is in fact a slave status and a pauper status. Nobody who was fully informed would choose to act in such a political status, which is why they palmed it off on us while we were still babes in our cradles and hide all the details forever afterward. Many people seem to be milling around wondering what to do. It's sort of a, gee, well, we formed a state assembly and got our paperwork recorded. Now what? For starters, hold regular meetings and develop means of helping and supporting each other. The state coordinators are being trained to help with some of the worst problems people in their state assemblies face. And as for the big vision of what the state assemblies need to do, it has already been described and set forth by our forefathers. Our form of government is supposed to be organized like the current government of the Swiss cantons. Since we have a living example of how the Swiss cantons function, it isn't exactly rocket science to apply the same principles in America. So study the Swiss cantons, discuss how they operate, look at how you can adapt a similar grassroots system of Republican government for your state. Once you start looking at the Swiss canton system, you can recognize the pieces and parts of our nearly but not quite defunct lawful government. Our general assemblies, our courts, our law, our sheriffs, our state militias, our public notaries, our electors, and all the rest that our forefathers established and which our foreign subcontractors have usurped upon. State assemblies give rise to general assemblies and state militias, as well as other offices and committees. They train and commission public notaries. They keep public records through their federation. They will issue passports. They will assist members who need access to the public credit our states and people are owed. They oversee the courts and banks. They charter their own state-of-state organization to conduct business and maintain infrastructure and caretake public property. They have public safety committees, executive committees, communications committees. It's a huge amount of work and organization that has to be done, researched, implemented, and expedited primarily by volunteers, by mom and pop. Not everyone has all the skills and knowledge to do this, but anyone who is sufficiently motivated can grab an oar. Split up the work to be done according to the skills and interests of your group members. Those of you who have butted heads with the driver's license issues, why not research that and share your findings with everyone else? That's one thing I've noticed. Many are quick to share when they've had a problem and received harassment, but then they didn't want to follow through with how exactly they handled it, or even, provide an example of, how they handled it, as to show others, to give them ideas of how to support them. Okay. Those who have dealt successfully with the IRS, take up the hammer and tongs. If you've done it, put that in. Let's start putting that in. That's all. That can go on these general education calls, right? Those are ways that you can be able to help support others, as well as it showing them that you're doing it, right? Not just talking about it. Many, they do well at talking about all the things that they've done, but when it comes to actually sharing it so that others can be able to see it too, that's where it falls short there. So that's where actually share what your experiences are, because then you're showing others that you are doing it, that there are others out there that are doing it to walk that walk, and how they're handling it. And share your failures and your successes, and because with the failures too, when you're sharing it, then others can be able to, can maybe see a different angle that you may have missed. And so that helps increase your knowledge for should there be a next opportunity. Hopefully not, but it would at least improve your awareness about a better way to handle yourself, right? As well as showing your successes, right? Because there may be somebody out there that you may have just given the right tool for them, that they could be able to go right out and use it and help them in the current situation that they're in, right? And that's where, once you are do have at least presented your 1779 two witness testimonies and birth certificate, then you are then you're invited to the Federation's Mattermost tool, which is a communications tool that connects to at least papered up nationals countrywide. And there's a town hall where you can discuss various general topics, but then there are different channels that are focused on specific issues, where they're coming together to support each other on how to work through various issues. So it's because we come together to support each other. If a large number of us engage, these illegal and immoral activities can be exposed and stopped and even reversed. It means you have to actually go through your part of rebutting as well. If, the instrument able to accomplish all of this and more is your state assembly. Thus far, the greatest danger to success appears to be the idea that some people have the state assembly is an instrument already made and set up to solve their own immediate problems, their lawsuit, their fight with their neighbors, and they want service right now. It is important for people like this who are coming into the assembly process to be told that this is not the government that they have known as they have known it. This is the government that they are owed and that they are responsible for. And while it is just getting started, they need to take JFK's words to heart and ask not what their assembly can do for them, but what they can do for their assembly. All right, this article, just the facts, ma'am, just wanted to pull this out. So how do you start? Get your own affairs in order and repudiate any claim that you're a United States citizen. Record your objection in public forums and records. Okay, so that's where you're correcting your status through the paperwork, right? You're recording that and putting it on a public record through the LRO, right? As well as then you're serving your notices. You're sending your notices via registered mail or certified mail. But it's putting it on it's being publicly recorded that way as well, right? That you did start doing your own objection to it all. Okay, so then from there, it's set up your own county juror assembly. Now in the article, itself, there's a space right here because it was giving call details for the Michigan Assembly, but it was because that has 2022. It's now 2023, right? But that is an old. That group is no longer supporting and participating. So I just wanted to give you the heads up on that. But all the rest, it was giving the call link details for it because it was a regular call. Okay. So once you have recorded and published your status correction, you're going to set up your own county juror assembly. This through the assembly, right? Establish a protocol for people to renounce United States citizen status and a county recorder's office to record their acts of expatriation and surrender of U.S. persons. Conduct and run your own elections to fill the vacant public offices, including the members of your unincorporated common law county court, land jurisdiction sheriff, justices of the peace, clerks, bailiff, coroners, recorders. Set up means to identify the state citizens. Organize your states, organize your state militias. Give notice to the United States and to the rest of the world. Let everyone know that the Americans are home again. This piece here, too, is not just that you're doing the support of the building, the assembly, but then it's also you're still continuing to help support serving notices to de facto to educate them. All right. So here are a few more articles that I thought would be important for you to look through that are relative to what we discussed this evening. And this was all found through search onavonrights.com. It does change, redirect it, so you'll see in the message bar that it changes to search onavonrights.americanstatenationals.org. But it's the same. But you can just go to search onavonrights.com, and it'll take you here. And I put in the search parameter of state assembly and militia assembly to pull these. So again, that search engine is an awesome tool to be able to help you. You can see how many articles that I was able to pull together where Anna's already gave us the path, just like she even said in one of the previous articles that I did read through, that the forefathers already laid the path for us. All we have to do is follow it. We have to actually get in and look at it and do something with it. Okay, so again, the challenge is now, this would be an extra challenge, but the challenge is to go to one of the articles that we went through earlier here and leave a comment, read it all the way through, and not just because I only pulled bits and pieces, except for the one that I discussed earlier about what is a militia, because it was only one page. So put in your comments as to what lost the train of thought. Okay, that's Spirit saying, okay, it's getting time. Okay, so just as a reminder, so status correction present requirements, everyone, birth certificate and or supporting documents, including name changes, any kind of legal name changes that were done through the process, through the courts. And then 2 witnesses. That's 2 separate. Some were confused of thinking it was 1 witness, but 2 copies of the same witness testimony. So 2 witnesses that are preferably over the lawful age of 21 and have known you for at least 7 years. If you're a immigrant, you were not born on one of the 50 states of the Union. Did you go through the U.S. naturalization process, green card, or if you're going with the 7 years undocumented, this is the requirement. That doesn't mean that you get to claim 7 years undocumented and then not provide anything. No, there's actual process that you still provide that information for us. Okay, so as a General Assembly member, National 1779 Declaration of Naturalization. You can declare yourself as a citizen, including the 928s, but it's also citizen's a big word, right? When you're going to state citizen at that point to support. Here you're a American citizen. And then federal persons. I've updated this from if you were able to see from a previous presentation. I don't think we ended up having a call for it for other things going on. But I updated, only had not eligible to participate in the reconstruction. But I wanted to get a little bit more detail because that kind of would, going back and looking at it, I'm like, well, that would make this, they can't do anything. But they can, federal persons can at least still come in and, come to like gatherings, community events, things like that. They're just not able to participate in the actual functioning support of the assembly until they've canceled that, because you're not actively supporting unless you're a state citizen at that point, fully armed, and you can't be at that point if you're still working that job or in that role. Participating assembly member. So the 1779, 928, common carry, declaration of political status. This is the piece many get confused with. They think, well, I presented the declaration of political status. That's all I need to do. No, it's a process. There's a cover letter that goes with it, and then you provide proof of mailing. I really do not need a picture of the envelope. Okay, all that's doing is using more ink. A copy of the postage receipt, or if it is the registered mail, the little white registered mail receipt where it shows the postage, the round stamp on it and all the details on it, a picture of that sufficient. But I don't need a copy of the envelope itself. That is just wasting the ink, color ink for those pictures. Okay. But the declaration of political status with the cover letter. The cover letter, you're dating it, the date that you mail it, you're autographing it. No need for thumbprint. No need to have it notarized. Many seem to think that cover letter gets notarized. Same with the IRS letters. Anyway. Or some mistake the Declaration of Naturalization Act of 1779 for the Declaration of Political Status and send that to the U.S. Secretary of State. So pay attention to, to what each process is. Cancellation of voter registration, revocation of election to pay taxes. There are 2 letters, one to D.C. and one to New York. It's not pick one. It's both. If you'll notice, albeit it's the same man, he's operating in 2 separate capacities. So you have to send to both. It's not like it's the IRS that you can just send to one and they, it's not like that. You're sending for 2 different purposes with that. Okay? Military severance, if applicable. Cancel licenses, bar license, real estate medical doctor license and background check. Participation member agreement. All right. Background check. Clearchecks.com. Clearcheck.com. And it's in the emails, previous emails, as well as previous presentations. All right. And if you're interested in a role that would be supporting, like as a recording secretary, notary, anything that's going to need to deal with a treasury, anything relative to the Treasury Department, because we have to develop the Treasury Department, and that'll stem from the Treasury Committee. Things like that will need to include the financial background, financial credit report, credit info with it. It's a one you can check in it with for bankruptcies and stuff like that. And you just do the basic check. And of course, again, participation member agreement. All right. So, and here are additional learning opportunities. Of course, there's the educational page that's on the 50 state site that is Terry's challenge to start out just 10 minutes a day of reading something from there. The Sign in America study course required for assembly participation, vendor card, private trade banking services access, that kind of thing. And there's the link there. This is important because this gives you a deeper deeper knowledge of the different jurisdictions and how to support enforcement. Join and learn more from the training portal from the Federation. This is a training portal provided by the Federation. It's to support Americans in their learning. Right now, there's two trainings up there and one more that is in preparation to be put up there. And again, so this is not something the Indiana Assembly is providing, so I'm not going to be able to answer any questions relative to it. If you have issues with it or any questions about it, you can connect with the Federation's help desk, and there's the link. And you will be asked to create an account there, so that way you have a main support connection in there. And then there's countrywide training. Go to that link that lists all the training. And then, of course, the Indiana Assembly has Wednesday night calls here, Sunday evening calls for the General Assembly and Assembly training. The General Assembly and the Assembly training calls they're alternating Sundays. All right. So it's going to be a lag. So that's going to be a few minutes before you all finish that out. I can take the display off, finish this up here, get myself a little bit bigger. Hi guys. All right, so let's see. Okay, so it's getting close. It's almost wrapping up here. So I want to thank you all for taking the time to just listen, to have an opportunity to get a clearer knowledge of what's expected of you, that it is more than just trying to get out of having taxes taken out of your pay. It's more than just getting out of the driver's license. There are more things at play at this point. You have the tools. The tools have been provided all along. All you have to do is actually step up and fulfill your part. So, it's getting close here to catching up with me, so I want to thank you all. It hasn't gotten to the camera portion yet, where I've closed it out. But okay, so I want to thank you all. If you I'll try. It should notify me when there are comments. So Hopefully, if it should, it is YouTube, right? So let's see. An American is a free. Okay, so great job. Thank you, Linda, for coming back and responding now afterwards. And we've had that opportunity, like I had asked, so that you can be able to see then how that plays out. Okay, so an American is a free sovereign person living on the land, walk in peace, help others with lawful assembly, papered up, no longer owned property of corpse, live by 10 commandments and constitution. That's great, Linda. Thank you very much. That's getting that pretty wrapped up as well. Thank you as well, Lisa. I'm glad I'm glad you were finally able to have an opportunity to get on and get it all worked out. It is technology. It's hard to live with or live without. But I want to thank you all, and you have a great evening. Peace and love, and have a good night. Oh, excuse me.